So not unless he is my priority, he is my delight. I think that's something he is still working in my heart, so that when he gives you what you're asking for, it wouldn't replace the place of God in your life.
Love it. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is, Louis, I need to sit with that for a moment. So that when he gives you the things you're asking for, they won't replace God in your life. That's powerful. Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Chimeze and I'm so glad you're here. Super excited because I have one of my lovely friends, the amazing, incredible, fun hostess extraordinaire, Faith. Faith, we've known each other now for just about a year.
A year, yeah.
How did we meet? Do you remember? Because I have no clue.
I think we met in church. Like, when I started attending Revive, I don't know if you know, but you're one of the people I see in stage, and it's like, I like the way how she moves on stage. I want to be her friend.
Yeah, I think everything introverted about me just goes off when I'm on stage. When I'm on stage, I'm dancing. Gosh, I'm just I'm in the moment, and I love that.
Yeah.
Well, my first encounter that I remember about you was actually at your home.
Okay.
Because you started to host a Connect, and I joined the Connect group a month later, a month after it started. And I just love, one, you clearly love the color purple, the color purple.
How'd you know?
Purple.
How'd you know?
Yeah. It's a secret. You love the color purple, but I also love your heart for hosting people. We always have the best of times at Faith's home every fortnight. And it's so great to also see different facets of who you are, because the you that I might have known in church, and I confess, I don't think we ever encountered each other one-on-one in church.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Not until I came to your home.
Yep.
But even spending time in your home and getting to know you, seeing you and knowing you in church as well as in your home through Connect, I've seen you just blossom over time.
Okay.
I've seen someone who used to always seem so introverted, now you just see like there's a local side of her. But
I'm camera shy. See, I'm not doing this interview.
I know. Even the fact that from the first moment that I asked you to come on my channel to chat to me, you just said yes instantly.
Yeah.
You didn't hesitate.
I was born for this.
But then 2 nights ago,
can we cancel?
Yeah, you texted me. I'm like, now?
So the introvert side started to creep in.
Exactly. But it would have been easy for you to make an argument for yourself to say, no, I'm actually not ready for it. But when we had a conversation that night, you're like, okay, yeah, let's do it. Let's go ahead with it. And I'm so happy that you're here. Look at me, I'm already tearing with laughter. I'm so happy that you're here. So a few things about you. You turned 40 3 weeks ago.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I know. She looks 25, doesn't she? And I remember we were going to, so how this conversation actually originated was, we were driving to a friend's wedding. This was a few weeks before your birthday.
Yes, yeah.
We'd already started planning your birthday dinner.
Yep.
And I started asking you about how you were feeling leading up to 40.
Yes.
And as someone who did 42 years ago, I feel like I have the right to ask that question. But we got into some conversations that I thought it would be really good to get into. I think people would really love to hear what that experience is, because you were 40, you were single, which is really what the whole essence of this conversation is, to talk about approaching 40 as a single woman and what that experience could be. What are the joys and what are the challenges? Are there any senses of lost dreams or unfulfilled dreams? So tell me about getting to 40, in the months or the weeks leading up to that. How were you feeling?
Actually, I think because like I'm a late bloomer in all aspects. So I feel like I really didn't feel that I'm turning 40. I was like, okay, it's just another year. Like when I went 20, when I went 30, it's just another year, nothing different. But I think weeks leading to my 40th birthday, there were circumstances, there were questions given by other people that started to stir a bit of unrest in my heart.
Oh.
And
what were some of those questions?
Like more of hard questions, like let's say about being single, about finding the right one, settling down, having a family. Because like what we were talking about during my birthday dinner, we never expected that at this stage we would be still single.
Yes, sister.
So culture and society would dictate that mid-30s, you have settled down, you have your own family, you have kids, and who doesn't like that, right? But it's just something that didn't happen. And for me at the beginning, it didn't bother me. But when people started to ask me, then I started to ask myself then, what's going on? So, and even not only that, there's also the career factor, like where am I at now in terms of career? Like another thing is that I moved from the Philippines to Australia 6 years ago, and I feel like I had to restart my whole life. So leading up to 40, having my career moved from the Philippines to here, I feel like where am I at now as well with regards to my career?
Yeah.
So I wasn't bothered, but a bit like weeks leading to my 40th birthday, all those things started crashing in.
Wow.
And yeah, although I don't share it much, but inside there was a bit of like an unrest that was there. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. And I remember, because we talked about this a bit in the car as well, about that sense of delayed dreams, or feeling like, if I might put it bluntly, feeling like you're a failure in the sense of things like where you are with your career.
Yep.
And I remember that years ago, I struggled with that as well. Not the year that I turned 40, but even in my 30s, I struggled with that. And I had no savings. I had no house. I had nothing. Of course, no partner either. And I remember an older friend telling me, look, you can't compare yourself and your life with the way that other people's lives are, because you have to give yourself some credit and give yourself the benefits of the doubt. One, you moved continents and countries. Yeah, that's a big move.
Not only country, continent.
Yes, yes. You moved continents, and also, so you've uprooted your life.
Yeah.
You've made a lot of changes. You're on a different path. I moved here 7 years ago to do a PhD, and that was, that was all consuming. It's challenging. It's challenging to do a PhD full time and have a career as well. One has to give for the other.
Right.
And because I was an international student, I didn't have the luxury of studying part time and working full time. So it had to be the reverse.
Yep.
And she brought these things to my attention, and she said, look, you're doing this, you're doing that. You have to acknowledge where you are and not compare yourself with other people, and just be grateful.
Yeah.
And that's helped me to develop contentment, because I realized that was what I was lacking at the time. Contentment. I was so discontent with the way that things were going in my life, and she helped me to look at my life from the outside in.
Yeah.
And that was such a helpful perspective for me.
That's so good. And I think you also mentioned during that time, you have to give yourself grace. Yeah.
So important.
Because like, I know that it's something that we don't often practice much today. It's hard to give grace to someone else, but I think it's much more harder to give grace to yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, and especially when you get to see how society dictates things, then you tend to forget that you're a work in progress.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And I think the biggest lesson that I've had to learn is that I'm on a journey that's different to everyone else's journey. And that's not me saying, oh, I'm special and unique and all that, but that's just it. In life, you're not in competition with anyone else but yourself.
Right.
And once you start to put other people into your own race, you find out that you start running their race instead of your race. And the momentum is different. Everything about it is different. You're just going to be exhausted from it.
Yeah.
I want you to talk about your experience of being single in the Philippines versus being single here in Australia. Was it easier in the Philippines, or are you finding it easier here?
Well, it's not easy wherever you are. It's not easy. It's because I think there's cultural factors like I don't know, but being brought up in an Asian household and an Asian culture, I feel that there's some pressure. I don't know. I think every culture has its different pressures on it, but there's a certain expectation in the Filipino culture that when you reach your 30s, you have your own family and everything, and they keep asking you to every wedding that you go to. They will ask you, "Oh, when will you be next?" I'm like, I don't know. Oh, when will you get married? Maybe tomorrow. It's 5 p.m.
What?
I'm too late. I have things to do tonight. Maybe tomorrow. You know, you answer it like that. But the thing is that there's a pressure to it. And then moving to Australia, a friend told me like, oh, you'll have more options. You'll have a wider range of like everything else. You'll see a better horizon. It's not that. It's not true. Because like if my set of friends, because like I'm a person who believes like I want to meet that someone in my circle of friends, just not randomly, but no, at now. No, whatever God gives is fine, but ideally I want to meet the person in my circle of friends. So in the Philippines, if I have this circle of friends, when I moved to Australia, it went this one. Because you're starting to build your life again.
Yeah.
You're starting to build relationships again. And it's not like you know everyone. So that promise of more options, not true. So yeah, I think it has its own challenges, whether back home or here, it has its own challenges. And you can't say that one is better than the other. I think it's, again, like what you've said earlier, looking at it from a different perspective. Because like if you look at being single on how society tells you it has to be, then the pressure builds up.
Right.
Wherever you are, whatever continent. Maybe not in Pluto, but...
Lives there.
But yeah, definitely it has its difficulties wherever you are.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned in the Philippines, when you're in your 30s, you're expected to have your family, your kids. In Nigeria, your 20s. The moment you graduate from university, people are asking you, so when are we coming for your marriage? So, the question starts. So I'd say for me, probably started around 21, 22. Yeah, when that expectation started to build. And even my dad would sometimes crack jokes about it. My dad never put pressure on me, but he would sometimes crack jokes about it. And oh my gosh, my dad used to do the most mortifying thing. If he was at a wedding, he would just get all the single ladies to line up. I'm like, no, can you not do that? So you know the bouquet toss that's done at weddings? I think that what my dad used to do at weddings, where he would just bring all the single ladies out, it actually traumatized me that I hate bouquet tosses. Because if you ask me, that's me announcing myself, hey, I'm single and I'm here and I'm desperate. That's the way that I interpret it. And so I don't like that bouquet toss. in Nigeria, definitely started early, but I was quite fortunate that my family did not put particular pressure on me. I know that when I was going to move, the first time I moved overseas, I was around 27, and my dad asked me, well, if you're going to move overseas, how are you, and these were his words, I never forgot them, how are you going to catch a man?
Okay.
And I don't even remember now what I told him. I was dating someone at the time, but he didn't know I was dating someone at the time. And the person was overseas, was in the country that I was moving to. But my dad wasn't someone that you told you were dating. No. Just bring the man home, let him come and introduce himself and tell me he wants to marry my daughter. That's what he cares about. He doesn't care about dating. Dating was not in my dad's dictionary at all. So he asked me that question that I think my oldest brother, because he was so concerned, apparently my oldest brother told me later that my dad mentioned the same thing to him. And he told my dad, oh, she's seen someone. And my dad was like, oh, okay. But then when I decided to move overseas again to do my PhD, then I was in my mid-30s. I had people, well-meaning people, who legit said to me, why don't you wait until you get married before you do a PhD? And this was me planning to further my studies and planning to move out of the country again. And my response was, you know what? I've been back in this country for 3 years and nothing happened. I'm not going to sit around indefinitely waiting for someone that may or may not show up. I've got my life to live. I just got to go ahead and live that life. The pressure is definitely there. In weddings, that's a big place where you find that, where people say things like, oh, don't worry, you'll also be the next one. And
sure.
and I know they're well-meaning, but sometimes I could also add undue pressure.
True.
Especially women. That single men don't usually get that kind of comment.
That's true.
It's more single women that get it. When you're married, your capacity expands because there's now two, right? But also your capacity diminishes in a way because there are now so many other different things that are seeking your attention. So I know this is not popular, especially when you're a mature single woman, but singleness is such a gift that you can use and you can maximize in that season and just honor God. And I don't want to look back at the stage because I know that it is fleeting and it will come to an end. I don't want to look back even a year from now or 2 years from now or 5-10 years from now and say, oh, I wish I'd done that differently. That thing that I would want to wish I'd have done differently when I'm 50 years old, I better start doing it now so that I can celebrate it when I get there.
Well, going back to that, because I told you, like, I was a late bloomer, right? And there are things even now that when I do my quiet time or reflect on my life, I was like, oh, I wish I've done it earlier. I wish I've moved to Australia earlier to have my independence earlier. But I think as well that God's timing is never early or never late. So I may have bad decisions back then, but right now He's giving me this time to work on it. So it's still His grace that I have this time. So maybe if I ask why isn't the right person coming yet, maybe it's also God's grace for me to work on what I have not worked on. So it's still good. We believe that our God is good, so we believe that His timing is good. So
Now 40, still single. What are your goals for this next season?
Well, looking at it, I just want to improve wherever I am right now, like career-wise, because that's the only thing at the moment that I have full control with. Like, I mean, not full control, but at the moment, that's the thing that I need to work on. And if I'm waiting for everything else, I think that at the moment I have the chance to shift things in my career. So I think just to be faithful in what God has placed right in front of you right now and work on it. Sometimes you struggle with fear, you struggle with doubt, you struggle with complacency, you struggle with being lazy. But I think one of the biggest challenges is that to trust God in all of the things that I'm doing. So to give him all the fears that I have, the doubts that I have, to help, to ask him to help me overcome the complacency, or let's say the things that I would put a bit later, just because I don't see myself doing that. At this point, just to be faithful in whatever is placed in front of me.
Yeah, that's good.
Develop myself in areas that I could manage. Like, there are things that are out of our control, but definitely God has given us the power to change things in such a way that, whatever the skills that he has given you, whatever things that he has equipped you with, use those tools and just change what you can.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And you talk about fear. I learned recently, it's one of those hard lessons, like, God, why are we talking about this? Remember in our Connect group, we did a challenge. I actually initiated this challenge. You remember the challenge we did when we each had to take a baby step?
Yep.
Right? So find something that you're afraid to do and do it. Just take a baby step in that area, a growth area. And my baby step was I needed to share something with a group of people. And when I was thinking about what to share, I realized that a lot of the fears that I've had around even starting this YouTube channel was a fear that I had to overcome. Because when I started thinking about it, I realized I was so afraid of being judged. I was afraid of rejection. I was afraid that I didn't really have anything to say to people. And I also had this fear of just being, how social media now can be, where people vilify you and just post lots of negative stuff. And I was afraid of that kind of backlash. And when God started talking to me about starting a channel, I'm like, can we do like an audio podcast only, please? Because then I didn't have to put my face in front of a camera. I realized that even though I'm comfortable with a microphone, I'm not comfortable in front of a camera. And that was a fear that I had to overcome. And when I started thinking about all the things that have been on my heart to do, but I've just been holding back on them because I was afraid, God showed me that the roots under all of that fear is pride.
Oh, wow.
That was a very confronting thing to realize. That it was pride. You think, oh, if it's not perfect, I'm not gonna do it. If it can't be 100%. So with my YouTube videos, for example, I know they're still not perfect. Every week I'm improving from my editing, I'm improving my hosting, I'm improving all of that, my setup, all of that. I'm having to make those improvements. But like my mentor told me, if you don't start, there's nothing to improve.
Wow.
You gotta start.
Right.
So I've actually found myself as a 42-year-old woman having to start a lot of things that have been on my heart for years, but I'm now only having the courage to actually step out into those things.
Wow.
And I want to echo what you said. You've got to do what's in front of you, right? Keep improving, and that's it as well, because I'm doing this and I'm getting feedback and I'm watching other people's videos and learning how they're doing things so I can improve on my own work. But if you don't have any starting points, there's no place to go from zero. You've got to start from one. God is going to multiply whatever you have in your hand, whatever you're doing. If you have zero times a million is still zero. So you've got to start from one, and then just keep improving, seek opportunities to grow, and trust that God's going to help you with that.
Something that I could also work on during this season is like my walk with the Lord, serving, being a part of the church and the community. Because like you said, I'm an introvert. But
can I just say, when you're with your brother, no, I don't see anything introverted about you.
He's my what's this? Something that you put to make more reaction.
Your catalyst.
Yeah, my catalyst. Bring my brother in, it's gonna be crazy.
Yes, go on, introvert.
But yeah, to get involved into something, I take time. And I feel like even getting myself to be a part of what's happening in church, I feel like I struggle to put myself out there. So maybe in this season that I'm still single and waiting, that's also an avenue in which I can improve myself. Be a part of the church, serve people, love people. And, I think God is giving me this time so that, He could use me in a purpose that I can't even imagine. So,
yeah, absolutely. And you have more capacity now as a single woman than you would when you're married.
Yeah.
So you might as well just say yes to the God yeses, to the God things. Because there could be so many things, multiple things in front of you. I heard someone say recently, this was, I watched a podcast that Priscilla Shire was a host in that was a guest in the podcast. And she was asked the best advice she's ever received. And she said that an older woman told her early on when she was in maybe her 20s or so, she said, you can't do 1,000 things to the glory of God. You can do 1 or 2, maybe 3 to the glory of God. So find out what those 1, 2, 3 things are, and then ask God to give you the grace to say no to everything else.
Wow. Yeah.
So in saying yes and building capacity and getting involved, make sure that you're finding the God yeses and saying yes to them. And once you get there, go all in. You're doing it for your Father. You're not doing it as a favor to someone, just do it for God, because He's the one who's calling you to that.
Right. And it leads me back to that verse in Psalms that says, delight yourself in the Lord and He'll give you the desires of your heart. So at the season of waiting, I think it's very much important that we check our hearts and make sure that our ultimate delight is on God. Because what if He gives me that thing that I'm praying for right now and my heart is not delighting on Him? I know my heart. It will be easily swayed to forgetting who God is in my life. So not unless He is my priority, He is my delight. I think that's something He is still working in my heart, so that when He gives you what you're asking for, it wouldn't replace the place of God in your life.
Love it. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That is, Louis, I need to sit with that for a moment. So that when He gives you the things you're asking for, they won't replace God in your life. That's powerful. Because sometimes we use the blessing against the blesser.
Right.
Make sure that you're not using the blessings that God has given you against Him. Don't use them as a crutch. Don't use them as an excuse to say no to the God things that He's placing in front of you. I feel like that's a word for someone who's listening, who's watching. It would be a mistake. It would be a big loss for you to use God's blessings against God. If you don't take away anything else from today, please take that away. Thanks for that, Faith.
No worries.
I was thinking about it this morning. I was thinking and saying to God, God, the best gift, I don't know if this, of course, God doesn't make mistakes, but this is how my conversations with God goes sometimes. I was saying to God that the best gift that you gave to humanity is free will. But didn't it occur to you that we were going to use it against you? Who gives a gift knowing that gift can actually backfire on them?
That free will, that gift to us of a free will, is because He loves us. He didn't want us to be robots dictated to love Him just because He says so. But He gave us free will so that we can choose to love Him or not, to choose Him or not. And it's on our own agency that we do it. And it's something that we like or we choose to do. That's why we choose God. So it's something, I think, because of love that God has given us as well, free will. He didn't want, He didn't want robots to follow Him, but people with heart and mind to choose Him. There would be always 100 excuses to do whatever away from the will of God. whether you're single, whether you're married, you'll always find an excuse. Oh, I'm just too busy. Oh, I'm just caught up with these things, just because you don't feel like it. But yeah, it's something that I feel like in any season of life, we just have to be faithful in what was given us.
Yeah, there's a lots of people who might be watching this and are approaching 40, or maybe you're approaching 30, you're approaching 50, you're approaching whatever age, and you might be in that place where you've started to ask yourself all these questions that people plagued you with, and in your case it's actually even more concerning for me because you were approaching the age joyfully and people just brought their own matter to you. But now, so whether you have been approaching your next birthday with dread and trepidation, or you've been approaching it with joy and maybe just gotten to a point where you started asking yourself questions, what advice would you give to anyone who's in that stage where something is fast approaching and they don't quite know, they have all these questions in their head? What advice would you give them?
Well, I think like it's also important to surround yourself with people who would, pull you up. I like this advice that I got from my uncle, who ever since I started here in Sydney, he says that you always surround yourself with people who are better than you. You don't stay stagnant with that this are the people that I have grown with and we're all at the same level. You always seek to surround yourself with people who are better than you, good, so that you could be brought up to their level, if not to help you improve. So I think that that's true for career, but also so much true with spiritual walk as well. I couldn't stress how important it is to be part of a connect group, because I am so grateful and thankful that God has given me you ladies to grow with. I think in the journey of being in a connect group, I have you and Sean, who I look up to as like someone who's a bit more mature spiritually.
I thought you were gonna say better than me. I'm like, you say so?
I think so because they're my connect leaders, and I have like young ones as well with us. Like, there's two sets: someone who could pull you up, and look for someone that you could pull up.
To pull up.
Yeah.
That's so good.
So yeah, it's important to surround yourself with this kind of people, because like when doubt comes in, they're the ones to remind you as well. And I think not only good people, but also God's people, because like the world can give you such good advices, but I think the best advices are from the ones who walks the life that God has given them faithfully.
That's good.
So that's one. Secondly, the one you said earlier, the perspective. Don't look at your stage as something like how the world is telling you it should be, because it's very much different in the way God sees it. I mean,
and even the way that other people see you, you'd be surprised. Yeah,
that's true. Let's say this is how the world sees it. This is the timing of the world, but God's ways are different from our ways, and His timing is always perfect. That's what He said in His Word. And I believe that the Bible is true and living, and it's actively working in our lives. So if it says in the Bible that God's timing is perfect, I just have to trust that His timing is not same as how the world sees it. So you always have to have that perspective, looking at it from God's point of view. I forgot what that was, but it's about worship, and it shows us a picture of a toddler being in an elevator with all adults there, and he was looking up overwhelmed. But when he lifted his hands for his dad to pick him up, and the dad picks him up, he sees things differently. So same with us. Like, if you're overwhelmed with the stages that you're going through in life, I think it's just but right to just lift it up to God. Worship Him, thank Him for all His faithfulness in your life, and He will shift your perspective from here to here, and it makes a lot of a big difference to how you see things.
Well, thank you. That's a lot of nuggets in there, and yeah, some of the things that you said are still churning in my brain, and I know that I'm going to be meditating on those for a long time. And I really do hope that this has challenged you as well. Thank you so much, Faith.
No worries.
Thank you for listening. Remember, you are valued, you are loved, you are more than enough. I hope to see you next time. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you are notified each time a new video is released. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time. Bye.